Well, thanks again for everyone coming today. I just want to thank our guests and our panel here. So first we have Andy Hinton, our VP and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Google, who will be hosting the panel. Next to him, we have Jeffrey Brown, who's an Academy Award-winning director, film producer, and screenwriter. So Jeffrey's dedicated his life to working with organizations in an effort to help stop trafficking and helping victims. And one of those organizations he works closely with is Courageous Girls, and on a project that is called the India and Nepal Project, which we'll be talking more about today. Next to him, we have Neerja Naik, who graduated from Cambridge University before training at the Drama Center in London. In Sold, she played Anita, a survivor of trafficking, and as a result of her work on Sold, she's become an ambassador for Children's International and their Taught Not Traffic campaign. And to our far right, we have Silvia Vasquez-Lavado. She is the founder of Courageous Girls, the organization Jeffrey is working closely with on the India and Nepal project. They work to help survivors of sexual violence and find their inner voice and strength. In addition, she's a technologist working for PayPal, helping to rehumanize money for those who need it most. And she's an avid mountaineer who was the first female Peruvian to summit Mount Everest. So thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it. And we'll hand it to Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for your part in the movie and in the response to the horrible situation that it portrays. Jeffrey, I guess it's a broad question, but how did you end up making a movie like this? I mean, it's not obvious to me how these things connect, how you and this connect. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my dad is a pediatric epidemiologist who worked all over the world for CARE, Save the Children, UNESCO. So I grew up in many different countries and saw children who were at risk. And so I'd always wanted to make a film, and I became a specialist as a director in getting young performers to do incredible things. And so, you know, when I read this book, I felt like this would be a really powerful entry point for people to learn about a terrible thing that's happening to the world's children, and that I could bring people in with a film to help address this.
Can you talk a little bit about bringing people in? I mean, how did you pull people together to make this a reality?
So we had many investors who became part of this, and a large group of them live in Seattle, and they actually formed, they came with us to India. They went to meet the survivors. I knew right away that the way to make a true film is to immerse everyone in the reality. Our actors, our crew, even our investors, we introduced them to children who were survivors. And really nothing has ever changed my life as dramatically as meeting 2,000 of these kids who had been brutalized in brothels in Calcutta and in India, in Mumbai and Kathmandu, in Nepal. And meeting these children, I walked in, for instance, in Sanlap into a rescue facility, and you walk by a very old guard, tiny old guard with a very old gun, a rifle, which is older than the guard, and then you look to your right and you see this cage attached to a room. And in that cage were two girls. One was about 13 years old, the same age as Lakshmi in the film, and she was terrified. The look on her face was like a wild animal with her back against the wall, looking for a way out. The girl sitting next to her was slightly older. She was maybe 15 or 16. She had been at Sanlap for a while, and she was tenderly talking to this girl. She was saying, "My name is so-and-so. These are clothes that you can have, and you can just call me Didi." Didi in Hindi means sister. And what she was really saying is, I'm your family now, and you can count on me. I'm there for you, and I'm going to help you through this. The girl the young girl had been rescued half an hour before. She had just come out of a brothel. And I will never forget the look on this child's face. And I realized in that moment, these were my kids. I have to do something to help them. And across India, there are probably 350,000 children who've been rescued from sexual slavery. And so the two things that I realized after going to many of these nonprofits that they need, because the problem is these kids are not going to be able to go home. Their families won't accept them. Their villages won't accept them back. The shame and stigma makes these kids orphans. They are alone in the world, and when they age out of the NGO at 18, they have to have vocational skills, and they have to have some inner healing so that they can have real relationships again. And it's almost like they die in this process. They become numb, they get PTSD, they don't trust anyone, they shut down, and iRest is an amazing way to bring them back. It's trauma-informed yoga nidra. It actually comes from India. It's an Indian yogic practice that is being widely used in the VA. There are now 100 veterans who are trained in iRest Yoga Nidra who are deployed and training hundreds of thousands of returning vets. And they're getting off their meds, they're sleeping, and we're beginning this process now in Nepal and in India with amazing women. There are 10 women in Nepal who are trained in art therapy, and these are survivors. And we're training 25 in Kolkata and Mumbai. And these are trained survivors who are trained as dance movement therapy teachers. And so with iRest, as well as those other modalities, they're going to reach hundreds of thousands of these children and young women to help them come back from the dead, recover their lives, be able to sleep at night, get out of the low self-esteem, depression. And we're also doing vocational training work. We're bringing vocational training to the NGOs, and we're helping businesses that employ survivors expand. So those are the two programs that I'm really passionate about, because I feel like without the inner freedom from fear that these kids can get from iRest, and without vocational training, they're not going to remain free. They're going to remain in this trap that they've fallen into.
Thank you. Thank you. Silvia, can you talk a little bit more about your role in healing some of the victims?
Yes, and thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm a survivor of sexual violence, and I have found my healing through nature, climbing. And you know, sometimes it's perfect timing. And I started my organization to try to help young survivors on that end. And then I had the opportunity of meeting Jeffrey. And I saw Sold, and I was completely moved. So I decided to connect traffic survivors in Nepal. And I was there, actually, the first time we screened Sold in Nepal into like late 2014. And there was a group of about 10, 15 survivors sitting behind me. And the imagery through the whole movie, they were crying. And when they finished, just imagine them, they all started embracing themselves. And you know, several of them reached out to Jeffrey and told them, thank you for sharing my story. It was really, really powerful. And so I had the opportunity of working with them, bringing them to base camp of Mount Everest, and actually through iRest, give them that opportunity for them to reconnect that strength. And I was very fortunate of seeing how this worked. For some of these young women, whenever dusk will be coming into light, you would see them starting to shiver, feeling uncomfortable. They couldn't close their eyes. I mean, just even the imagery of them, you know, having a good night's sleep. And that's what iRest started introducing to them. And it was so powerful to see the impact that it could have. I don't think we have the chance to show a couple of photos, but we were able to see, I mean, after we started working with a small group of young women, some of them were able to take them into some of the shelters. And that was just really powerful. We had, by coincidence, a German iRest practitioner who was living in Kathmandu at the time. So she was able to kind of start doing a very basic entry level. And just to see the effect of what the entry level of iRest did on them just gave us that hope. Just imagining being able to bring this at a much larger scale, which is exactly what we're going to do. I mean, what we're doing right now in trying to get these 3 sessions, we're bringing actually the trainer of all trainers of iRest. We're bringing a woman who is extremely specialized, who's going to be spending a lot of time in Nepal and in India, and just being able to empower this. And this is it's an amazing modality that is going to make such a huge difference.
Thank you. So, Neerja, first off, an amazing Anita. Just
Thank
amazing.
you.
So I can't imagine how you can make a movie like this and not be affected by it. Tell us, what was the effect of doing a film like this for you?
Yeah, well, I met Jeffrey totally by chance in New York, and I didn't know that trafficking existed in the way that it does, and I didn't know that modern slavery existed in the numbers that it did. So first of all, just meeting Jeffrey really opened my eyes to that. And then, you know, as an actor, you really need to embody characters who, a lot of their time, their experience in life is completely different to what you've experienced. And so you have to empathize. So when we started shooting, before we started shooting the movie, we actually met with survivors. And I met with 2 women who were in their 30s. And they had been trafficked when they were 13 and 14. And they were one of the lucky ones who actually got out, because it's actually a, you know, it's a very rare story for these girls to get out. But I couldn't believe the difference between them. One of them, when I met her, she was in her 30s, but you could still see the suffering. It was just written all over her face. And she had had children, but she had gone into sex work in order to support them because she didn't have any other opportunities. Now, the other woman was just completely different. I've never seen anyone shine so bright. Like, I don't know, like 10 times what you would think a movie star shines like. Like, her eyes were sparkly, she was smiling, she was joyous, she was so happy to be talking to us as actors because she knew what we were going to be doing with this movie. She knew that it was going to be powerful. And she did like a dance for us and a song for us. And what they both had in common was their strength. Both of them were incredibly strong. But I think what this second woman had found, she had married a taxi driver who she was in love with, and she had had kids, and I think through her life, somehow she had found healing. And that is where I think iRest is really, really powerful, in that it can help these girls actually find that healing so that they can grow and so that they can flourish, and to go from that level of suffering to that much light and brightness. I just found her amazing. But it was the strength that they had that sort of really struck me, and I thought, that's what I want to bring to Anita. Like, I want to bring that kind of strength to her. So there was one day on set, and it's a really simple scene. Like, I put on makeup every day, like, you know, like I put on clothes, like, you know, it's just something that I do every day. And in this scene, I was forced to put up makeup on a 13-year-old Lakshmi, and it was the first day that she'd been in the brothel, and I knew where she was going. I knew what was going to happen to her. I knew where she was headed. I knew why I was putting this makeup on her. And I have never, ever felt so much rage on a film set in my life. I was incensed. It's this tiny thing. I was just putting lipstick on a girl, but I was so angry. And in that moment, the penny dropped, and I was like, oh, that's her strength. I was like, that is what Anita's strength is. She has that fire, she has that anger, she has that defiance. And she stands defiant until the end. You know, even her last line in the movie, I've always wanted to travel. She is defiant, and she's sort of like cracking a very darkly humorous joke at the end. And I absolutely love that about her. So I really learnt that I think that's exactly the way we should all be in this fight. We should stand defiant, and we should be angry, and we should be incensed by what we have seen and what you guys have seen today. And we should use that anger, and we should use it to really do something about this, because this can't go on. So yeah, I think meeting Jeffrey sort of really changed my life and gave me some sort of purpose within this cause. And yeah, I've never met anyone who works so tirelessly against this. So I really hope that you will all join us in it as well, and that you will feel that way. I can see from your eyes that you have been affected so much by seeing the movie. So yeah, thank you for coming on a Monday afternoon in your lunch break. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's the resilience that you spoke of, that's really what we saw across the board. These children and women are very, very strong, and given a chance, they are the fearless ones that will go forward and make change. They will get the laws enforced. They will become the survivor advocate leaders. That's what's happened in the US, and in the nonprofits, the staff are often survivors themselves, and they're the ones helping to rescue others and helping to heal others and empower them. And so it's just about really helping them get empowered, and IREST will do that. It will liberate them inside to step up to their full strength, their full power.
For those of us who aren't familiar, IREST, a little bit about what that is.
So it is a yogic breathing modality where you breathe and you focus on different parts of your body, and it works on the two hemispheres of the brain. And they've done studies with the veterans that have been using it, and literally what happens with trauma is it stores in many areas of the brain, but the brain, thankfully, is very elastic. When people have PTSD, their brain actually shrinks. It changes shape physically. And after IREST, it relaxes and goes back to the normal, full shape. The contraction releases. And what happens with trauma is people get stuck in fight or flight mode. They get stuck in being hypervigilant, always having their adrenaline on, getting triggered by all kinds of strange things because of the trauma that they had, like a door closing. That might just set them off. And IREST is a way of welcoming fear and facing it in a really tender, loving way and breathing into it. And the instinct of all of us is to avoid fear and avoid the feelings. But what happens with IREST is you go into them, you let them come up, and you let them dissolve. Like clouds, they just pass through ultimately. And it's a really powerful, simple, tender way of healing people.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
What role do you see for corporations in supporting this cause? What can corporations do, and what can employees do to potentially support that too?
So there are two levels of slavery. There are two types of slavery on the planet. There's sex trafficking, which happens to very young kids, and you just saw a movie about that, and that's what we're addressing. And then there's labor trafficking. Both need to be addressed. Jeff and his team are working on corporate responsibility, making sure that slavery is not in any of the supply chains that are bringing products and equipment into Google. All corporations need to do that going forward. They need to make sure that their suppliers are free of slavery in the supply chain. So that's one very powerful thing. The other powerful thing is giving it a voice. If we can get this, for instance, to Twitter, Facebook, other companies that can amplify the message of modern-day slavery, that's a very powerful thing. People mostly walking on the street do not know that there are now 21 million or 45 million slaves on the planet Earth. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that before I read this book and optioned it the next day and started getting involved in this issue. Now I'm very educated in this issue, but previously I was largely ignorant. I thought it happened to a number of people in other countries. I didn't know it was so prevalent in my own country, in my own backyard. And it's about sort of learning, teaching yourself what it is, and then finding ways where your heart feels called to address it. My heart feels really called to helping these children, survivors, because I feel like they're going to be the change makers. And we've seen that. 10 survivors testified to Congress in the US, and we have something called the T visa, which is a way for survivors not to be sent back to their countries of origin. They can remain in the US because of the T visa, because 10 survivors testified to Congress. So that's an example of survivor voices making real change. Did that answer your question? There are more, there are a lot of organizations, a lot of our partners on our website, soldthemovie.com. You can see they're wonderful organizations doing great things, both domestically and in other countries. So you just have to find out where your heart feels called to take action and serve.
Thanks. I was curious, what's the reaction in India and Nepal to the film?
So you heard a little bit about Nepal. We showed it to about 500 people in Nepal, ministers of government, survivors. The laws changed after the showing of the film. It's much more difficult now for someone underage to cross from Nepal into India. you're required now to be with a relative, an immediate relative of your family if you're crossing and you're underage. But there's still government officials that are rubber stamping a certificate saying that this is not a 14-year-old, this is an 18-year-old who is free of her own volition to go to India. So there's still loopholes, but it's gotten better. India, we haven't actually brought the film to yet. We hope to air it on television in India. We're translating it into Hindi and Bengali. We just received a grant from a philanthropist to do that. And we have organizations on the ground in Nepal, India, and Western Bengal who will take it into rural villages, the most prevalent areas where children are trafficked from, and show this film there. And part of what we're doing with the vocational work that we're beginning to do as well is to reach out into the rural villages where the children are trafficked from and do some of the vocational work there as well. Because the issue is poverty. And another part of it is the inequality of women to men. Those two things are very much what can make trafficking very prevalent.
And I just quickly want to add that, you know, one of the challenges is that for many of these girls, the shame that happens after they've been rescued, sometimes they can't get back to their villages. So what Iris is going to be able to bring is cutting through that shame internally. Through that trauma healing, they'll be able to gather that strength in order to be the more stronger advocates of what's happening. I mean, the words coming from survivors, it's incredibly more powerful, and the passion that they will have. So that's one of the abilities, that's one of the advantages as well that the film has created in at least a little bit in Nepal and will have the impact in India.
Mm-hmm. I went to a really small screening of Soul that we did as part of a film festival in India, and we haven't yet translated into Hindi or Nepali, although and Bengali, although we're planning on doing that. And so I went there with the English version of the film, and we had maybe around 50 to 100 women come from the local villages in this very rural part of India. And I remember freaking out, and I was like, oh gosh, are they going to understand it? I was worried about how they would relate to it because of the language barrier. And I was sitting and I could see the audience when I started playing the movie, and they just went boom. And these women from these rural villages just kind of locked into the movie. They understood the story, and at the end of it, so many of them came to me just with tears in their eyes, and they understood the message of it. And so, in terms of raising awareness about the issue in these rural areas where girls do just get picked off, I thought the film played really well there, and it was really powerful, and the message reached them regardless of the fact that it was in English. So I think once we do get it translated, it'll be that much more powerful as well.
And we've opened quite a few Indian film festivals all over the world, and the response from the Indian audience has been really embracing. We've won quite a few awards in Indian film festivals. It's been wonderful. Audience awards and things like that.
We have to wrap it up because of the live stream. So Jeffrey, Neerja, Silvia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very powerful, very moving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.